What's going on, guys? B Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your wide receiver sit starts heading in to week number 9. So obviously I'm going to rattle off a lot of must-start running backs. Then I'm going to go through guys that I think you should be starting this week, and then a few receivers I would be sitting. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we're rolling over the wide receiver sit starts heading in to week number 9. Obviously, I like to go through a lot of the must-starts just quickly, just briefly go over the guys that I would be starting no matter what. And then obviously, I got 4 or 5 receivers this week on my must-starts. And then I got 4 receivers that I would be sitting altogether. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff, and then comment. If there's a receiver I don't mention, because I'm not going to mention all of them, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my opinion on start-sit questions, which wide receiver to start over another, vice versa, all that good stuff. So let's start at the top. We're going to go through your must-start receivers. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, my number 1 receiver, playing the Tennessee Titans, should have a huge day. Tennessee give up the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position, so you're starting Cooper Kupp. Tyreek Hill, another guy smash spot. Green Bay Packers, the target share, the target volume's there. Offense is sputtering a little, but it's Tyreek Hill. Devonta Adams, hopefully he's back from COVID, playing the Kansas City Chiefs, even with Jordan Love under center. I like Devonta Adams. Jamar Chase, playing the Cleveland Browns. Honestly, they've given up plenty of fantasy points to wide receivers, and Jamar Chase has been outstanding. Top 5, top 7 receiver on the season. Deebo Samuel, playing the Arizona Cardinals. Tough matchup here, and Deebo dealing with a little bit of an injury, missed practice on Wednesday, but you're still firing him if he's out there. He's been great. Marquise Brown, playing the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota giving up 6th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position, very generous, and Marquise Brown has a touchdown in almost every single game, so you're going to be starting Marquise Brown. CeeDee Lamb, playing the Denver Broncos. Looked great over the past 3 weeks, seeing the volume, getting a lot of yards, making it happen, even with Cooper Rush last week. So CeeDee Lamb is a start for me, even though Denver is a little stingy to wide receivers, you're starting him. Michael Pittman Jr., playing the New York Jets. Honestly, the New York Jets haven't given up tons of fantasy points to wide receivers, but I think that's just because they haven't had to. They've been beaten in so many different ways. But you saw last week, plenty of receivers scored a touchdown with Joe Burrow under center. So I like Michael Pittman. 2 touchdowns, 15 targets last week. He's a smash spot for me. Robert Woods, playing the Tennessee Titans, missed practice today. Now, is it a rest day, or is it going to affect him going forward with some sort of foot injury? I don't know, but it's obvious start if he's there. If he's not there, Van Jefferson, huge sleeper. I'd be starting him. Even potentially in a deeper league if you got to start Van Jefferson. A decent option. Justin Jefferson, at the Baltimore Ravens. Not necessarily a great spot, but a decent spot. And Justin Jefferson really is looking for that bounce back. So I like him this week. Got to be firing him here. Stephon Diggs, they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, smash spot. Deontay Johnson, Chicago Bears, another smash spot. Their secondary isn't very good. Obviously, A.J. Brown as well. Tough matchup with the Los Angeles Rams, but no Derrick Henry. You're seeing the target volume start to pick up. You're starting A.J. Brown. Looks like an elite wide receiver that you drafted in the first few rounds of your draft. So let's get to some wide receivers that I like. Maybe guys you're on the fence with starting. And this week, I like them as starts. First off, I'm going to be talking about Emmanuel Sanders. Now, playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming off a game in which he was held to 0 catches on 4 targets. Now you're asking, why would you start Emmanuel Sanders? Well, they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. You should see a bounce back here from Emmanuel Sanders. Honestly, they give up a lot of big plays downfield. Jacksonville's defense does. 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And as I mentioned, they've been eaten up by downfield targets. Brandin Cooks, Tyler Lockett, Cortland Sutton, Christian Kirk, all over 100 yards, all deep ball receivers. And that's what Emmanuel Sanders plays. So I like Emmanuel Sanders this week as a potential guy that's going to bounce back, could see a touchdown here, and could have a decent day. My next wide receiver is a start, Rashod Bateman. This is a little bit deeper, I understand, if you're on the fence with him. But this week, going against the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota giving up the 6th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Bateman, 6 targets in back-to-back games that he's played. Now he's getting reacclimated into the offense. Obviously, the bye week, that should help. And Baltimore Ravens coming off a bad loss. They should bounce back here. I like Lamar Jackson, and I like Rashod Bateman this week. And with the rookies, don't sleep on the big day. The big day is waiting to happen, I think, for Rashod Bateman. It could be this week. So get him in your lineups. Could have a good day here. Another guy like Brandin Cooks. I think he's going to bounce back. Last week, you saw some garbage time. He made it happen in the 4th quarter. 6 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. And he's been really not producing very well over the last few weeks with Davis Mills under center. But if Tyrod Taylor is to come back in this game, I like Brandin Cooks to be a top 15 to 20 option this week at the wide receiver position. Through 8 games, he's got 70 targets on the season. So that's an insane pace. And the 46.5 over-under, or 46 over-under in this game tells me that there could be some points to be had here. So I like Brandin Cooks in a start here. definite spot that I'd be firing him. Christian Kirk, another guy I love here. Playing at the San Francisco 49ers. No A.J. Green on the COVID list. We'll see if he possibly can return, but it's looking like he's looking to miss. DeAndre Hopkins is banged up. And obviously, if A.J. Green's out with Hopkins banged up, as long as Kyler Murray goes in this game, which that's still waiting to see, I like Christian Kirk as a good option here in a game in which there should be some sort of volume coming his way. He's had some decent days over the season. He just hasn't really produced on a steady level, but I think without A.J. Green there, you could see a decent day here. I think the bump in targets is a great sign. 2 touchdowns in his last 3 games. So I like Christian Kirk. You got to pay attention to the injury report and how these guys go throughout the week. If Kyler Murray's starting and A.J. Green is out, I like Christian Kirk as a possible start here. Another guy I'm going to throw in here, Jamison Crowder. Playing the Indianapolis Colts. Give up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. The most receiving touchdowns, 13 to wide receivers. And I think it's just going to be negative game script. 9 targets, 8 catches for 84 yards last week in a negative game script. And it's the New York Jets. They're going to be a negative game script. It's looking like Corey Davis is probably not going to go in this game as well. Mike White didn't look half bad. He really didn't against the Cincinnati Bengals defense that I thought should have held him a lot less than 34 points. But it's neither here nor there. Jamison Crowder, I like him this week in a potential game script type of play here where he could see 10 targets and maybe he finds the end zone in this one against the Indianapolis Colts. So let's get to some wide receivers that I have as sits this week. First off, Marvin Jones playing the Buffalo Bills. Essentially almost every subpar receiver going against Buffalo Bills, I'm going to have them as a sit because they're so good against wide receiver position. Fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, the fewest touchdowns on the season with just 2. Last week, 7 targets, 5 catches, 35 yards. Just 1 touchdown in his last 5 games, Marvin Jones. And then he's only cleared 35 yards 1 time in his last 4 games. So I don't necessarily love the matchup here as it is, and I don't know if he's going to see a high enough volume rate to be able to make it happen against this Buffalo Bills team. So Marvin Jones, I'm out this week. He's a definite sit. Another guy, DeVonta Smith. I've talked about him as a sit, and he's been on my sit starts a lot. And I told you to start him in spots where he should have been good, and he hasn't. And honestly, he just hasn't put it together on the season. Just 1 touchdown, and it came in week 1. 3 targets last week, 1 catch for 15 yards. I get it. It's hard to judge because of the way the game script was. But he's playing the Los Angeles Chargers. Give up the 2nd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, the fewest receptions, the fewest yards, and the 2nd fewest touchdowns. Just 3 touchdowns on the season to wide receiver position. So I don't like DeVonta Smith this week. 8 catches for 107 yards and no touchdowns. That is his box score over the last 3 games. So no thank you to DeVonta Smith until I see something otherwise or a flat-out easy matchup. I can't trust DeVonta Smith going forward. So for me, he's an obvious sit. Then we got the New England Patriots pass catchers. I had them as a sit last week. I'm going to have them as a sit again. I think they're going to be very game script dependent and matchup dependent. And this week, it's not a good matchup. They're playing the Carolina Panthers. 5th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver position. And you don't know who to really trust in that pass catching room. Jacoby Myers, low-end PPR guy, 0 touchdowns. It can only find the end zone on 2-point conversions. That really sucks for him, seriously. But then Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. These are guys I can't trust on a weekly basis. Yes, they put up some flashy plays and done okay in spots, but I just can't trust it, not against Carolina. And honestly, the Stephon Gilmore revenge game. This is going to be talked about a little bit. Hopefully, he gets an interception. That would be a great thing to see. Playing for the Carolina Panthers, Carolina at home. We know the defense has gotten healthier, and adding Stephon Gilmore has just bolstered that secondary. So I don't like any of the pass catchers for the New England Patriots this week. And then my last sit, a guy that you're probably not sitting, but I would really lean toward it if you got some stronger options, and that's Mike Williams. Mike Williams has been great on the fantasy season, especially for the first 3 weeks. Had the big blowout game 3 weeks ago, but other than that, he's really done it out. It's not a good matchup. Playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia give up 3rd fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver position. They allow on average just 10 receptions per game total to wide receivers, and Mike Williams hasn't been getting it done. Last 2 games, 10 targets, just 4 catches for 46 yards, and 5 or less PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. And I don't love the matchup because he's going to be dealing with probably a lot of Darius Slay on the outside. That's where he lines up predominantly. So it's just a tough spot here for me, for Mike Williams. I think Keenan Allen is a safer play to lean towards if you got him. And Mike Williams was a lot more boomer bust than we were hoping for at this point in the season. So he would be a sit for me potentially this week. I get it if you got to start him. But if you got better options, I'd be looking elsewhere. So that's it. That's your wide receiver sit starts heading in to week number 9. So if you have any questions, obviously I didn't mention a lot of wide receivers. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my opinions on anything fantasy related, wide receivers, quarterback, running backs, anything at all. And once you're there, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share a thumb bell for all your fantasy football information all season long, all the way up to your championships. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.